What if everything you've ever been taught about winning a woman's heart is exactly what's been condemning you to loneliness? The mind is both a prison and a refuge. It can turn hell into paradise and paradise into torment. Many men live this silent tragedy. They love as if they were begging. They dress well. They say the right words. They follow every rule as if life were a manual. Yet they are never truly desired. And what hurts the most isn't the failure itself, but the cruel feeling of doing everything right while her heart runs toward another. Maybe you know this pain. You were kind, attentive, always available. You praised, you listened, you cared. But in the end, she chose the unpredictable, the indifferent, the man who didn't even try. And then the burning question rises inside. What's wrong with me? The answer is uncertain. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. This conversation is not for everyone. It's for those who have spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling with an empty chest and a shattered ego. For those who are tired of repeating the same mistakes with different faces, and who now want to truly understand why love never seems to choose them back. Today, we're going to unearth ancient codes, beliefs planted in you back when you could barely write your own name. We'll dig deep into the ground of your mind and descend, because it's down there, in the dark, where truth lives. The truth no one has ever dared to tell you. Yesterday, in a small cafe where time seemed to move slowly, I watched a man trying to win over a woman. He was handsome, well-dressed, polite, even carried a touch of charm. Yet for 37 minutes, every move he made failed. I observed quietly. He laughed when he didn't want to laugh. He agreed with everything she said. He fixed his hair, asked questions, and looked at her as if she were a living miracle. She checked her phone while he believed he was making progress. And it sent a chill through me, because that's exactly what so many men do, trying to win a game whose rules were written against them. But the tragedy isn't in failing, it's in believing you're succeeding. It's in following a script you never wrote while convincing yourself it belongs to you. Have you ever stopped to ask who taught you to be this way? At 5 years old, you heard, "Be nice to the girls." At 10, your mother repeated, "Treat them like princesses." At 15, people told you the secret was being different from other guys. And now, at 20, 30, or 40, you're left wondering why they don't even notice you. You became the perfect man in theory, but a ghost in reality. This is the curse of invisible programming. It works like a hidden software running in the background. It makes you say yes when you want to say no. It makes you please when you should push back. It turns you into something predictable, agreeable, forgettable. You became the nice guy, the one every woman wants around, but no woman truly desires. And do you know why? Because the nice guy is a social invention, a domesticated, neutered model, trained to be accepted, but never craved. Women don't want the ruthless wolf, but they don't want the overly tame dog either. What they're drawn to, often without realizing it, is the man who walks the line between the two extremes, the man who belongs to himself first, before belonging to anyone else. When you live to be chosen, you lose yourself. You try to fill the silence with jokes, patch up the emptiness with compliments. But desire is not born out of the absence of conflict. Desire is born from tension. Look at cinema. No film is unforgettable without a powerful villain. Look at art. Nothing truly pulses where everything is too smooth. And look at relationships. What moves the soul is never predictability. It's risk. But you were trained to avoid risk, to stay inside the lines, to mold yourself into what she wants you to be. The cost? You destroy the very spark that makes you alive. You turn into an actor. You perform. You edit who you are in the desperate hope of being accepted. And when she leaves, you don't understand why. Deep down, neither does she. She only felt that you weren't fully there, because men programmed to please are never whole. They are diluted versions of themselves, shadows of what they could have been. And the cruelest part is this: you did it all out of love, out of longing for connection, out of hunger for affection. You were shaped by a society that confused kindness with submission, that taught you to worship women as unreachable goddesses instead of seeing them as human beings, with desires, flaws, contradictions. Women who, in order to feel attraction, need to see you as an equal or even as someone above them, not as a man begging for emotional crumbs. Do you want to change this? Then stop seeking approval and start building presence. Presence is not about fancy words. It's about being whole. It's about not fearing silence, not avoiding a direct gaze, not running from honest disagreement. It's about never apologizing for existing, and little by little you'll begin to see, the less you beg, the more they come closer. The more you simply are, the less you need to do. Do you remember the moment you realized the world wasn't fair? Maybe it was when the girl you loved chose the dumbest guy in school. Or when you spent days crafting the perfect message and she replied with nothing but a "lol." Or perhaps it was that night when everything seemed to flow until she simply disappeared. And then you thought, but I'm different, I'm good, I'm reliable, I'm kind. And that's exactly where the mistake begins. You believed that love was a moral equation, that being decent was enough to be desired. But desire isn't ethical. Desire is primal. That's the wound many men spend their lives trying to ignore. Women aren't drawn to your kindness. They're drawn to your presence, your firmness, your unpredictability, to the wolf you buried long ago when you learned to be the boy who pleased everyone. And the cruel part is, you didn't bury that wolf with awareness. You buried it with shame. You were taught that being wild was being bad, that being direct was being rude, that setting boundaries was toxic. So you trimmed away everything in you that was instinctive. You cut off your wants, muted your impulses, hid your energy, and what remained was a man who is polite, gentle, and completely harmless. But here lies the uncomfortable truth. The absence of danger kills desire. This doesn't mean you must become a brute. It means you must become whole, rooted in your own boundaries, in your ability to say no, in your authenticity, even when it doesn't please her. Women don't want a tyrant, but they also don't want a servant. They long for the man who inhabits his own territory, who doesn't change his path just because of a pretty face. The man who knows what he wants and what he does not want, even when she's sitting right in front of him. As Clarissa Pinkola Estes wrote in Women Who Run with the Wolves, the man who lives in contact with his wild side never has to prove his masculinity. He radiates a silent strength that needs no explanation. And it is that quiet force that instinctively pulls women closer. But you were trained to do the opposite. You were taught to chase female validation as if your very existence depended on it, and that turned you into someone predictable. Women do not long for predictability. They long for emotional polarity, for the subtle dance between yes and no, between presence and mystery, between comfort and challenge. You are afraid to disagree, afraid to be misunderstood, afraid she might walk away. And she feels that fear, and when she feels it, she loses respect, because deep down, what a woman wants, though she may never say it out loud, is someone she cannot manipulate. She wants to know if you belong to yourself more than you wish to belong to her. And here lies the paradox. When you are willing to lose her, that is when she feels she can trust you. Because you are not trapped. You are not trying to buy love with compliments, favors, or constant presence. You are not a marketing campaign. You are a territory, a place, a whole being. And maybe deep inside, you can feel that wolf screaming. It doesn't want to devour anyone. It only wants to be freed. It wants the right to say, no, I don't accept this. No, I don't want that. Not to be rude, but to be real. You must understand that emotional tension is not violence. It is the space where desire breathes. Look around. When was the last time you felt truly drawn to something obvious? When was the last time a film without conflict held you to the end? Women are like the attentive spectator. They crave stories with arcs, characters with depth, and scenes that are unpredictable. But you fear chaos. You want order, control, an instruction manual. You want to know exactly what to say, when to say it, how to please. And that turns the encounter into a soulless script. She feels it, because unlike many men believe, women are always feeling. They read the subtext, the tone of your voice, the delay in your response, the fear between your lines, and when you show up full of fear, full of need, full of expectation, the wolf inside her senses it. You are too safe to be exciting, and so she pulls away, not out of malice, but out of instinct. You didn't awaken desire. You only offered comfort. And comfort is beautiful, but only after attraction, never before. So stop trying to prove you are the best. Stop chasing approval as if your existence depended on it. Begin living as someone who has no time to be chosen, because he has already chosen himself. The wolf doesn't need to roar. It doesn't need to pound the table. Its strength is in silence, in the steady gaze, in the ability to walk away, in the absence of fear before feminine judgment. That is the man a woman desires. Not the one who kneels, but the one who walks beside her. Not the one who begs, but the one who proposes. Not the one who serves as a strategy, but the one who is whole by nature. And if you feel that wolf asleep inside you, wake him, not with fury, but with truth. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Reclaim your presence, reclaim your integrity, and stop once and for all trying to be the man they told you they wanted. Because in the end, what excites the most is the one who doesn't need permission to exist. Every man has been through this. You met someone and you were kind, polite, respectful. You sent affectionate messages, replied quickly, poured out compliments. You opened your heart with honesty, showed her you wanted something serious. And in the end, she said, "You're amazing, but..." And that but hides an entire graveyard of broken promises. It's the elegant sound of rejection. It's the answer that cuts deep because it doesn't tell you that you're bad. It tells you that you're not enough. And what makes it crueler is that you truly believed you were doing everything right. You followed the manual of the perfect man. You offered safety, care, loyalty. But in the end, you were erased from her memory like a notification read and forgotten. And then you ask yourself, why does this happen? Why isn't being good enough? I'll tell you why. Because you were too nice, too reliable, too quick, too available, too invested. And that made you invisible. Yes, you became the emotional equivalent of pretty wallpaper. Present, taking up space, but never truly noticed. The pain of being ignored is a silent pain. It doesn't bleed, but it corrodes. It makes you doubt yourself, your worth, your masculinity. But listen closely. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to break free from this cycle. Since childhood, you were conditioned to believe the key to love was kindness. And of course, kindness is noble, but not when it's used as currency to buy affection. That's the fatal flaw of the nice guy. They're not kind by essence, they're kind by strategy. Every compliment hides a request. Every favor hides an expectation. Every good morning is bait, trying to hook attention. And women feel it. Even if they can't put it into words, they sense it. What they feel is, this man isn't whole. He's selling me a version of himself. He's trying to buy me with sweetness. And that isn't love. It's emotional marketing. And no matter how polished marketing may be, it does not create desire. Desire is born from mystery, from the unpredictable, from the man who doesn't need to please because he's already comfortable in his own skin. You want to be remembered? Then stop trying to be the soap opera hero. Stop erasing yourself in exchange for acceptance, because that's exactly what the nice guy does. He avoids conflict. He says yes when he wants to say no. He smiles at everything. He tolerates everything. He bends to everything. And in this desperate attempt to be loved, he disappears. As Nietzsche said, becoming who you are requires a fight. But the man who always says yes never fights himself, and therefore never finds himself. Do you understand? Your identity doesn't grow stronger by always being agreeable. It grows stronger when you set boundaries, even if you're afraid. When you disagree firmly, even at the risk of losing. When you are honest, even if it frightens her. You fear losing the woman, but you should fear even more losing yourself in the attempt to keep her. And more than that, when you pretend disinterest but answer in 3 seconds, she notices. When you say you have other options but are always available, she feels it. When you claim confidence but constantly mold yourself to her taste, she knows. Women have an emotional radar that is frighteningly sharp, and it never fails. They were trained from an early age to detect inconsistency. They sense when you're performing, and that kills the spark instantly. Haven't you ever seen a woman fall for a man who didn't deserve her? Of course you have, and it burned inside you. But he treats her badly. Yet maybe what she felt for him was real, because he, with all his flaws, was authentic. And authenticity, even when raw, attracts more than rehearsed perfection. And no, this doesn't mean you should be an asshole. It means you must have the courage to exist without asking for permission. Think about that man who walks in, looks straight into her eyes, and says what he thinks without worrying about pleasing. The one who disappears for a day without drama, who says, "I didn't like that," without raising his voice. That is the man who takes up space in her mind. Not because he's handsome, not because he's rich, but because he doesn't beg. The nice guy begs through gestures, through words, through the endless "Good morning, princess" at 7 a.m. And every unwanted "Good morning, princess" sounds like a silent plea. Please see me. Please choose me. Here's the brutal truth. No one desires the person who needs to be chosen in order to exist. You must become someone who has already chosen himself. Someone so rooted in his own center that he doesn't bend under her silence, doesn't collapse at being left on red, doesn't fall apart over a no. That isn't coldness, it's integrity. When you understand this, you stop trying to win women and start filtering them. You begin to choose, to observe, to stand firm in your center. Do you want to stop being invisible? Then become a man who never negotiates his truth, just to be loved. Because the man women remember isn't the one who said everything right. It's the one who had the courage to be whole, even if that wholeness scared her. And the woman who's worth it won't run when you reveal yourself fully. She will stay, because she'll finally feel she's in front of something real. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from tiredness, but from the exhaustion of living for acceptance. You know this silence, the one that comes when she doesn't reply, when the phone buzzes but it isn't her, when you see she's seen your message but didn't care to answer, and then something inside you implodes. You feel small, rejected, almost childlike, as if simply not being noticed erased who you are. But here's the question no one asks. Why does it hurt so much? Why does the absence of a reply, of a glance, of a touch, make you feel so insufficient? The answer is brutal, because you never built a center of your own, and so she became your sun. You orbit around her. Your mood depends on her. Your self-worth depends on her. You need to be seen, because inside there's a void you refuse to face. The problem isn't her. The problem is that you made her the cure for a wound that was always yours. At some point in your story, you learned that you were only valuable when you pleased, when you were useful, when you got everything right. Maybe it was with your mother. Maybe it was the silent absence of an emotionally distant father. Maybe it was that first crush who ignored you while falling for someone else. And there, in that everyday-looking trauma, an invisible pact was born. If I'm perfect enough, someone will love me. That pact became a habit. The habit became identity. And now, without even realizing it, you live chasing approval like a man gasping for air. You fall in love with whoever notices you. You get addicted to responses. You lose nights wondering what she thinks, what she feels, if she still wants you. But what about you? Do you still want yourself? Do you still choose yourself? The truth is that most men use female desire as anesthesia for their own loneliness. They don't want a woman. They want a mirror that says, "You matter." But mirrors break. And when she leaves, or worse, when she stays but withdraws emotionally, you crumble. Because she didn't just take her body, she took the meaning you had projected onto her. And this is how men lose their souls. When they hand over their reason for living to another person, you become a satellite orbiting a planet that doesn't even know you revolve around it. You empty yourself just to be filled by a glance, and every crumb of attention becomes a feast. But that is not love. That is codependency. It is a collapsed system of self-image where you only feel alive if you're desired. And the most tragic part? Women feel this emptiness. They can't always name it, but they feel the weight of being the only emotional pillar of a man. And it is unbearable. Nobody wants the burden of sustaining another person's existence. That isn't romantic. It's exhausting. Do you want to know why so many relationships collapse suddenly? Because men project onto women a role that was never theirs. To heal their childhood, to validate their ego, to fill their void. And when they fail, because they will fail, these men fall to pieces. Here lies the paradox. The more you need a woman to be happy, the less attractive you become to her. You radiate neediness. You radiate imbalance. You become an emotional burden disguised as romance. You know that man who always says, "I'd do anything for you," who abandons friends, hobbies, and dreams just for her. At first it flatters her, but soon she feels the weight. This man has nothing outside of me, and that is terrifying. What makes you magnetic isn't how much you want her. It's how little you need her to feel whole. But maybe you no longer know who you are outside of the role of the man who loves too much. So listen carefully. You must build a life too vast to ever fit inside one woman. You need passions that stir you more than a notification. You need silences that don't hurt, Sundays that don't beg for messages, a mirror where you recognize yourself without borrowed approval. That is freedom. And freedom is not forced detachment, nor coldness, nor arrogance. Freedom is when you love without erasing yourself. It's when you look at a woman, fully enchanted, and still can say, "I want you, but I don't need you to exist." That is the man who attracts. Not because he plays games, but because he is whole. He doesn't panic over late replies because he is busy living. He doesn't seek love as medicine, but as encounter. And if you feel you've lost your soul along the way, know this: it's still there. Beneath the neediness, beneath the anxiety, beneath the fear of being unloved. It waits for you in the silence you've always avoided. Stop running after those who don't choose you and start running back toward yourself. Because in the end, the right woman won't complete you. She'll overflow you. And only those already full can overflow. There's a kind of man who enters a room calmly. He doesn't smile too much, doesn't talk too much, doesn't try to be accepted. He is simply there, present, steady, complete. And people feel his presence. He isn't begging to be seen. He sees himself. This man has understood something 98% of others never will. True power is not in being desired, but in being the one who chooses. But maybe you are still on the other side of this equation. You still arrive asking for emotional permission. You still plead with your eyes, "Can I enter your world?" And every time she hesitates, you shrink. Every no feels like a sentence. Every silence feels like a broken mirror in which you search for yourself and fail. Why do we do this? Because we were conditioned to believe love is a conquest, that she is the prize, and that to deserve her we must please, yield, perform, beg. But that is not love. That is desperation disguised as romance, and desperation does not seduce, it repels. Women feel when a man is desperate to be accepted, even if he fakes confidence, even if he hides it with charm or jokes. They feel it. And what they sense is, he is not here to know me. He is here to convince me. Do you see the difference? The man who chooses observes. He has standards. He filters. He pays attention to her value, but without forgetting his own. He asks himself, does this woman truly fit my life? Does she add or only shine? Does she bring something beyond beauty that sparks me? Does she respect who I am or just what I can provide? These questions liberate. Because once you stop begging for love, you begin to investigate compatibility. You stop chasing validation and start connecting with women who vibrate at your frequency. But to reach this place requires courage. Courage to lose what doesn't serve you. Courage to face loneliness not as failure, but as part of the process. Because at first, when you stop being the man who begs, there is emptiness. You find yourself surrounded by silence, by absence, by distance. And everything inside you screams, go back to the old pattern, chase her, send the message, prove your worth. But it's in that exact moment the transformation begins, when you do not cave, when you remain with yourself even while bleeding inside, when you don't try to force, but simply observe, feel, and move forward. That is what makes you a rare man. Because the world is full of men trying to be loved, but very few love themselves enough to choose instead of beg. And here comes the most powerful shift. The man who chooses does not fear rejection, because he knows rejection is not failure, it's filtration. She didn't want you. Good. She's not for you. You just save time, energy, peace. You are no longer selling your soul for kisses. You are no longer treating seduction like a job interview. You are no longer waiting to be chosen as if for a miracle. You are the miracle. You are the entire universe. And a woman who cannot see that is simply blind to what is real. To choose is not arrogance. It is maturity. It is looking with clarity, knowing what you want and even more, what you no longer accept, because you have lost yourself enough times trying to please. You have silenced your own voice to fit into someone else's desire. You have molded your essence for faces that never truly saw you. And now, enough. It is time to choose. Choose with open eyes, with a clean soul, with unwavering presence. It's no longer about impressing. It's about imposing presence, not through force but through integrity, because the man who does not fear loss is the man who will never be forgotten. And maybe right now, in this very moment, you're ready to say, I am the standard. I am the invitation, and only those who are willing to share, not dominate, not drain, not consume all the space, may enter my life. That is power, silent, non-negotiable, unmistakable. From this point on, you no longer wait to be chosen. You choose, and only what is real enough to walk beside you remains. The fact that you've made it this far already says a lot. It doesn't matter how many times you've been rejected, ignored, belittled, or forgotten. It doesn't matter if you've spent countless nights asking yourself why she never chose you. What matters, what transforms, is that now you know. You know that being good is not the same as being desired. You know there is no dignity in kneeling for a love that never truly saw you. You know that every time you erased yourself to be accepted, you drifted further from who you are. But now, something has shifted. Not by magic, not by pretty phrases, but because you've felt the truth in your body. You've realized the root of the problem was never her. It was you abandoning yourself in order to be chosen. It was you treating crumbs as banquets. It was you asking for permission to exist. And now you're different, because now there are no excuses. You can no longer say no one told you. You carry the weight of choice. Either keep repeating the same tired script or write a new chapter of your life. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will be lonely at first. But on the other side of that loneliness, something greater awaits. There is a man who walks at his own pace, who loves without begging, who desires without depending, who looks into the mirror and finally recognizes himself. Maybe that man is not yet fully you, but he already lives within you, and if you have the courage, he will grow. I remember one night clearly, soft rain, 2 glasses on the table, her talking about astrology, travel, and spirituality. And me, smiling, nodding, trying to look interesting. Every gesture was performance, every word an unspoken plea for acceptance. But inside, I was dying, not because of her, but because once again, I had betrayed myself. It was only when I started saying no that my life began to change. No to fear, no to the desperation of needing to be loved at any cost. No to the domesticated version of myself. And that's when I finally understood. The world doesn't respect those who hide. And real love never lives where there is desperation. If you've stayed until the end of this video, it's because something inside you is already ready to rise. It doesn't matter if you're still afraid. What matters is that for the first time, you looked fear in the eyes. And for that, thank you, truly, for giving me your time, your attention, for allowing these words to pass not only through your ears, but through your wounds. Oh, and before you leave, click the link in the description or the first pinned comment to understand the process that has been pulling thousands of people out of autopilot and helping them build lives aligned with their values and with who they want to become. Now let me guess. You're the type who watched the whole video, felt chills, felt your soul leap out of your chest, but you'll still leave without liking, commenting, or subscribing, right? Fine. Pretend you don't need it. Pretend this content magically shows up on YouTube, carried by emotional elves. But if, by chance, you're part of the 3% who actually want to change, then leave a comment here. In the end, it's simple. Stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Because the man who owns his presence, who lives whole and unshaken, doesn't chase love, he attracts it.